magistrate who would not hear us speak. To a drunken brute who beat his wife, he only gave a week. But we were sent to Holloway, a calendar month or more, because we dared against his will to knock at Astley's door. For it's woman this and woman that, and woman wait outside. But it's listen to the ladies when it suits your party's side. When it suits your party's side, my friends, when MP's on the stump and shaking in their shoes at how the cat is going to jump. When women go to work for them, the government engage to give them lots of contract jobs at low starvation wage. But when it's men that they employ, they always add a note. Their wages must be paid because the men have got the vote. For it's woman this and woman that, and woman learn your place. But it's helpers of your charity when trouble looms apace. When trouble comes apace, my friends, when trouble comes apace, then it's oh for women's charity to help and save the race. May not quite be angels, had we been we should have flown. We're only human beings who have wants much like your own. And if sometimes our conduct isn't all your fancy paints, it wasn't man's example that has turned us into saints. For it's woman here and woman there and woman on the streets. It's how they look at women, with most men that one meets. With most men that one meets, my friend, with most men that one meets. It's the way they look at women that keeps women on the streets. Hello again. Welcome back to the Lockdown Library. We're going to talk today about the Actresses Franchise League. So this is the group of women who were in the theatre world who were trying to get the vote for all of their sisters. And this is really going to be a sort of starter course. It's kind of a taster introduction because there's a lot to say about it. There's a lot of fascinating women involved in this. And we can't touch on them all here in the next 20 minutes. But I'm hoping very much to do a whole season dedicated to them in the future, working with my great pal, Naomi Paxton, Dr. Naomi Paxton. This is her book. I'm basically plugging this right now because this is where you want to go to get all your amazing facts about this amazing campaign. Because I'm a suck-up, I have the hardback version that came out as hot off the press, but it's actually coming to paperback in September this year, so definitely get your pre-orders in for this. It's a fantastic read. Anyway, it's thanks to Naomi that we know so much about the Actors Franchise League now. It was a collection of big names. There's very famous people that write and work with them. You've got people like Ellen Terry and Edith Craig and J.M. Barrie and George Bernard Shaw all supporting the cause. But you also have lesser known characters like Kitty Marion and Cicely Hamilton, who are fantastic characters that, again, we'll talk about in the future in more detail. It's Cicely Hamilton who's in the illustration for this week, drawn for us by the amazing Jackie Fleming. Thank you so much, Jackie. I hope you guys are finding the illustrations as adorable and fantastic as I am. Such a gift. So I'm going to read you a piece now to give you an example of the kind of work that came out of the Actors Franchise League. Because one of the things that's so fun about it for us as performers is that they wrote their own material and they made a really great job of a lot of it. Some of it's aged brilliantly and is still hilarious, including how the vote was won, which is by Cicely Hamilton. But that's quite a big cast. I'm not going to read you that. I'm going to read you a monologue that they used to use. They would use this work as for propaganda and for speech making and to attract people to their cause, but also I think to probably lighten their spirits a little bit as well on the campaign trail. So I think this one is a lovely cocking the snoop a little bit at some of the arguments that were levelled against them from the other side. I should like to tell you about the way in which we started our anti-suffragette league at Little Pendleton. Lady Bellamy feels very strongly about suffragettes, so she decided to have a drawing room meeting to form an anti-suffrage society. Lady Bellamy is the daughter of a duke and very exclusive, so we all jumped at the idea of going to her house. Lady Bellamy said that it was a great pity that servant girls were getting so independent nowadays, and she attributed it to the suffragettes. In her opinion, radicalism and socialism were ruining the country, and she would never employ anyone, not even a gardener on her place, who didn't promise to vote Conservative. And her gardens are lovely, you know. And then one member of the division spoke, Sir Reginald Bellamy, a sort of cousin to Lady Bellamy. He's been divorced twice, so of course he knows something about women. And if he hasn't a very high opinion of them, then you know it isn't for want of experience. He said that women have too much power as it is, and that our function was to be charming and please the men. and that if we debased ourselves by interfering in politics and opposing men, we shouldn't be treated with that consideration and deference that every English gentleman showed every woman. Well, of course, that would be horrid. So he ended up also by saying that the fact we'd come here to assert how unfit we were to take part in the affairs of our country showed that we agreed with him. Oh, then another member of Parliament spoke. He's a big mill owner. He said we must stand together, back to back, because we were face to face with revolution. Women in the mills were agitating for the same pay as men doing the same work, and he pointed out that that were ridiculous. For if women stayed at home, they'd get no wages at all, so anything he gave them was sheer profit to them. It really was a treat to hear an argument put so simply and clearly. He gave us statistics too, that women did not want the vote. I forget the exact figures, but I think he said 103% didn't want it. And so if the majority don't, why should the minority have it? That seems logical. I forgot. He also said he was saying that the election was coming on soon and he wanted us to canvass for him and speak at his meetings. And then the Archdeacon got up. What a dear man, and so learned, but a little absent-minded. He quoted St. Paul. I remember something about long hair being a glory to us. The poor man is quite bald. Then he said how the man was the natural master of the house and how the woman's function was to obey. And we all looked around to see if his wife was there, but she wasn't, luckily for him. For there's no doubt the poor man is dreadfully henpecked. If he wants to smoke, he has to go to the conservatory. Anyway, he said a woman's place was her home and she ought always to be found in it, not getting about to meetings and so on. And that made me feel uncomfortable, for that's just what we were doing. He said that a good woman would fill up her time and fulfil her duties to her husband and family. Now that was a rather unfortunate remark, as Lady Bellamy is only home 3 months a year with the hunting. All the rest of the time she's in Cairo or Monte Carlo or somewhere. He told us it was a man's function to govern and to keep us unspotted from the world, and that we ought to fight against the spirit of rebellion and foster that of content. I do try to be content, though it's a little hard sometimes that Papa allows Jack, my brother in the army, £600 a year, and I only get £45 and a Christmas box of £10 if I've been good. But then, as Mama says, Jack's a man, so that explains it. He got into debt badly last year, and Papa had to pay a lot of money, nearly £1,000, and put him straight. And when Papa found that I'd exceeded my allowance by nearly £7, he was awfully angry and asked me if I wanted to ruin him and docked it off this year's allowance, so I haven't been able to get a new hat this spring. But that hasn't anything to do with the meeting. There was one other speech by General Sir Thomas Carrington. He's rather old and has only one lung, but he told us women couldn't fight, so we oughtn't to vote. Then someone said, Joan of Arc. And Lady Bellamy said she was a French hussy who wore men's clothes. So that settled that. And then the General quoted these beautiful lines. A woman in our hour of ease, uncertain, coy, and hard to please. When pain and anguish wring the brow, a ministering angel thou. And then he had a fit of coughing and his poor wife had to attend to him. None of the ladies would speak, so Lady Bellamy said they must appoint a secretary, and to my horror she proposed me, and Mama accepted for me. I couldn't speak, I was blushing so. I'm sure some of you will become anti-suffragettes now, now that you've heard the arguments. There are lots more, of course. I've written to the head of society to send me some. They haven't yet. Still, it's in a good cause, and it's one's duty to do something useful in the world, isn't it? Even if it is rather a lot of strain on one's brain. So I think you'll notice that we aren't having a drink together tonight, although I certainly hope you've got whatever you need at home. And that's because I thought we'd have a bit of a change of pace and we'd have a sing-along instead. So because the great thing about the Actresses Franchise League is they also put fantastic music out there and conveyed their messages in lots of ways. Some of their messages more serious and direct than that last piece, but done with the same viv and attitude, and I think there's some of them just fantastic. So I hope you've got the words with you. We put them out in advance of the salon, so hopefully they're with you, and you've had a chance to maybe listen to the MP3 as well that the wonderful Claire Englehart put out for us. So here we go. Let's give it a whirl. Let us all speak our minds. Men tell us 'tis fit that wives should submit to their husbands submissively, meekly. Though whatever they say, their wives should obey, unquestioning, stupidly, weakly. Ah, husbands would make as their own dictum take, without ever a wherefore or why for it. But I don't and I can't, and I won't and I shan't. No, I will speak my mind if I die for it. For we know it's all fudge to say man's the best judge of what should be and shouldn't and so on. That woman should bow, nor attempt to say how she considers that matters should go on. I never yet gave up myself as a slave, no matter my husband might try for it. But I can't and I don't and I shan't and I won't, but I will speak my mind if I die for it. Yeah, I did get a couple of the words wrong there, sorry. It's always easy to cover that when you're not singing along with other people, but I'm going to pretend that we just sounded in perfect harmony and that I got everything right. You sounded lovely. So I'm going to finish now by doing a little take on taking us up to the modern day with a piece that was written specially for us, which kind of shows how women artists now are still celebrating suffrage and the fight for women's rights. I'm just mention I'm wearing the colours of the Actresses Franchise League here, as Naomi's pointed out many times. They're not the same as the suffragettes. There's no purple, there's green, pink and white. So there you go. Nod there. And now we're going to do a story by the wonderful L.H. Travail that was commissioned for us, especially in 2018 when we were all celebrating the suffragettes, as we should be constantly. And it's got a very nice twist on the approach, and I think it has a nice link to the back catalogue that Skirtle Girls has of both feminism and vampires. So here you go. This is a story that brings a modern take on the suffrage movement. Called You Know What Sucks. Scraping footsteps in the dark. A whisper of heavy fabric against mould black brickwork. Oh, why am I here and not where it is safe and warm and familiar and comfortable? For me, this why began with the murder of Lord Blake. A murder, I confess I agree with Margaret on this one, which could not have come at a better time. Lord Blake was proposing to vote against us. But he was killed, drained entirely of the thick red blood that rose to his cheeks whenever he dismissed an equal world with snorting arguments that shook his nostril hairs and became tiny extensions of his belligerent desire to keep his wife as a servant, his daughters as commodities, and any future sons as proud carriers of his coin, his beliefs, his vote and his bloodline. The newspaper stated there was not one drop remaining in his crumpled corpse. In the meeting hall, we had black pudding to celebrate, except Jennifer, who is very modern and a vegetarian. Mrs. Tully said it was in terrible taste, but ate heartily. We all knew the difference between slyly relishing the fall of an enemy and performing the deed ourselves. Although that was exactly what Margaret suggested we claim. But we didn't do it, said Annalise, always the first to state the seemingly obvious. How do you know it wasn't one of us? Growled Margaret. We all hate the man. Hated. The blood sausage sat heavily in my stomach. Margaret was crackling with ambition. Look at the paper. Last week's rally, page 14. Our meetings, page 26. And we have to pay for the advertisement. Lord Blake dead, page 1, and printed with the big letter blocks. The discussion was cut short by the door of our meeting hall squeaking open and a small brown-haired woman in a faded black slipping through. Lord Blake's widow. Margaret froze, one hand on the lectern. Mrs. Tully wiped a speck of sausage off her lips. Jennifer just stared. And Annalise said, "Hello." "Hello," said Lady Blake, tiny echoes of her moth-wing voice fluttering to the rafters. Margaret, never one to waste an audience, began reading from an inspirational pamphlet. No further mention was made of claiming Lord Blake's death in the name of women's suffrage. Until 3 days later, when the paper printed on the front page with the big blocks, "Second peer murdered." Well, this time, we met in an unaccompanied house that Jennifer was working on. She let us into the servants' entrance while the roar of her state-of-the-art motorised vacuum cleaner drew a crowd to the front of the building. We talked in the wood-lined study while her operators dragged heavy, gasping pipes from room to room, sucking dust and the occasional ornament into the huge, raging vehicle outside. "I hate that machine," said Mrs. Tully, confiding to Jennifer, who was supervising the extraction of an ivory pig from the filter. "You hate the future," snapped Annalise, defensive of Jennifer as ever. "Imagine a day when you no longer have to sweep the floor." "I have that already," Mrs. Tully came right back. "My husband does the housework every other day. That's what we're here for, isn't it? Working together, not polluting the world with lumbering contraptions only the rich can afford." "You're just jealous because she's got a business of her own." Margaret spread the paper on the table between them with an unnecessary flourish. A second politician, throat slashed and body drained of blood. A second outspoken voice against us, gone. Suspicion falls on suffragette groups. No celebration, even from Margaret. "Now we look like cowards and freaks. They're mutilated." Jennifer was standing in the doorway with a heavy, flexible tube laying loose in her hands. "Exsanguinated. Somebody's got a knack." I stayed quiet. And I'm quiet now, in these dripping halls. In the half-light, I can see what I was told I would see here. Coffins. Old wood and each half open. Standing beside one is Jennifer. It was Jennifer who told me to come here. She'd warned us all of the danger at the meeting hall after the death of a third opposing voice. "It's a vampire." Her face was deadly serious when she said it. Annalise's mouth dropped into a shocked gape. Margaret's cracked into a huge grin. Mrs. Tully narrowed her eyes. The widow Blake averted hers. "My dear girl," the tiny woman's fragile voice trembled, "I'm touched you would consider every culprit for my husband's murder. However, I'm only too aware that there would have been no shortage of human hands desirous to end his life." "Damn right there." "Ooh." Margaret swallowed guiltily the moment the words left her lips. Lady Blake shook her head patiently. "I cannot pretend, girls, that my marriage was an enterprise of bliss. I heard my husband's arguments enough times to shred his every case against you to tatters, but silently. He could not know that I saw how wrong he was." "We understand," said Mrs. Tully. "We're so glad you're safe now." Annalise looked disapprovingly at Jennifer as she took the supper pot from the stove. "Oh, what you owe, Lady Blake. We can bring the leftover broth for your daughters." We never saw Annalise again. Her father told us she'd been found with her head stoved in, skirt up around her shoulders in a freezing alley. "Like a common tart," her father said. "You did this. You filled her head with nonsense. Her pretty head all smashed." "She was taking soup to the widow's family," said Jennifer, mouth tight with fury. "But I expect there's common tarts who do that too between your visits." Annalise's father struck Jennifer so hard her cheeks split open. But for once, our brawler Jennifer, who could match any labourer blow for blow, did not fight back. She let the grieving father go. Why am I here? I fear to walk in the dark. I fear to speak too loudly, lest I call violence upon myself. I fear the world may be like this for us, always, unchanging. We resolved, nevertheless, to continue our work together. Jennifer offered the services of her vacuum machine to the Blake house, free of charge, for a clean start. We all offered to help a struggling sister in the name of another who had fallen. And now I'm hiding in this deep, long tunnel beneath the house. Watching as Jennifer reaches into one of the yawning coffins, pulling out a doll-like bundle. Spindly and heavy, it creaks and breaks in her rough hands as the flutter of a voice whispers through the gloom, "Jennifer." I recognise the frail tone of Lady Blake. Jennifer does not turn towards the sound. "Lady Blake, I thought I would find you here." The widow's wavering voice approaches, crystallising slowly round the edges. "Well, it's my house after all. Oh, wait, you mean below the basement in a coffin? No, not my style. I leave those to fool the Van Helsings and such like. They do so enjoy being right. I put some other mannequins of silk and bone for them to thrust their stakes into. They leave happy. You, however, are not so easily satisfied. Why do you seek justice for those you despise?" Jennifer's face is tight and still. "I was prepared to let it go when it was just those parliamentary fools. But why kill her?" A tiny white flicker in the darkness moves slowly closer, the clean, sharp teeth of Lady Blake glittering beneath her faded widow's veil. "Your sweet Annalise, no, that poor child, that was not me. That was one of your human monsters you already fight. I have done nothing but help you." Jennifer's mask of a face crumples, and she hides behind her hands. Behind her, the soft black form moves to cradle her grief. "For over 100 years I have hidden so easily in the body of this quiet woman. But with what you propose, even the quiet woman will eventually be seen. With my long experience as a visitor to your species, it's clear to me that your cause will triumph. I intend to spend my immortality on the winning side. You may join me." The veil pulls away, the pristine teeth are bared. "Just imagine being able to fight for as long as one such as I can live. Or not having to fight at all, because now you are the one with the power to shape the world. Gently, slowly, keeping to the corners of neglect. For all humans, however much they profess to care about one thing, inevitably neglect another. You may picture us in the future, if it pleases you, feeding with abandon on the souls of quiet men." The vampire prepares to puncture the skin of her prey with arrogant precision. Jennifer's eyes look into the darkness where I am hiding. I'm a quiet person too. The widow Blake may have chosen her timing, to be sure. Margaret and Mrs. Tully are noisily hauling hoses above. But I doubt she even saw me in the house upstairs. Or even if she did, would consider that I might venture into the tunnels below. I pull out a long, sharp, wooden pin from my hair. Why am I not safe and warm and familiar and comfortable? For our equal, hopeful world of kindness and respect, against all the chill, false victories of repeating things the way they are. Battles such as this will not be celebrated or remembered, however many times they are won. They'll never be known. There's no glory after, only dust falling without the snow's sure promise of a thaw. We're going to need that vacuum cleaner. Thank you so much for coming tonight and hearing these stories and this work, and for all those people who contributed and made this work possible. Do go to the website scarylittlegirls.co.uk, because I've got a blog. I'm trying to get your help to help me choose my costume for the last of this season's salons, which is the next one. We're coming to the end of this first season, and I want to know what spectacular sort of besequinedness you want me to put on for it. I'm very proud that I've managed to get a different outfit, hopefully, for each salon, so we'll see how I can continue that for. Yes, thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely evening, and may peace, happiness, and a lack of blood sucking, and may your blood run through your veins very comfortably. Thank you very much. Bye bye.